What's happening? Benton here. 4:45 a.m. Central Time. Still at the truck stop. As you can see, I finally got off my rear end and mounted up the phone here so that we can have a view of the road as we drive. The royal we, of course. And out of regard for you folks and my schedule, I'm actually running my loud ass yap right next to this truck driver's sleeper cab. Maybe I should pull up to the fuel island. Then I'll be blocking the fuel island. How strange. And if you see this trailer number 7512 to my right here, there's actually a rig beside me that's being blocked in. People never cease to amaze me. Now, this is the guy to my right that you cannot see, that's off camera. He is doing heavy haul. So typically those guys they can only drive during the daytime, but shit, the sun's coming up. And I don't know what time this 7512 rolled in. What's up, Piano Man? Good to see you. Music Holds a Secret, I believe he posted before I went live, so he may not be here yet, but he's probably here. I see two in the house. Yeah, good to see you, Rob. And I was just listening to Chalk Body Outline from his backup channel, Get Chalked Up, from last night. I have a lot to respond to. A lot of the Aphrodite stuff, Toilet Bowl Earth making some excellent points about the people like Word Wizard breaking down words phonetically, and Toilet Bowl Earth equating that with Jordan Maxwell, like a telephone game. And since Toilet Bowl Earth is humorous, since he's a funny person, he called it homophone. But I tend to agree, and I've given a lot of leeway to people like Wizard, that want to play those phonetic games, because I want to see, I'm always interested to see where can the person take this premise. And I think increasingly what we've seen is, with some exceptions, it rarely goes anywhere. Now, there is something to the Paul Unslaved, account able to be accountable, right? There's something to some of that, but then it does, very quickly go off into left field to no purpose or to no end, I would say. Okay, good. Good to see you. Music Holds a Secret. I never know, how much I have to say. I will say, as my health is, I won't say improving necessarily, but aspects of my my mood and my health are certainly much better or less worse than they were in the recent past. Some of these live streams, especially when I go on these rants, that is powered, in part by my own irritability and agitation, and triggeredness. If that makes sense. So I've noticed of late I have less of that, if you want to call it vitriol, or like a tank of rage, within me or whatever. Hey, Dark Glasses Willie, always good to see you, brother. And towards the end of the stream, and I did not quite finish Drew's stream. I think within the last 20 minutes or so. And with my own self-centeredness, and in fact, I do become a topic of conversation at some point on a lot of these panels. I realize at a certain point that, and I think we see this with Paul as well, when there's a character such as myself, and I will put myself in a group with Paul potentially, although I think maybe I exhibit this to a greater extent in my own life, is strength. I do, if I may toot my own horn, I know that I've exhibited, over a period of many years of strength of character, mental strength, physical strength to some extent, although those days are most likely over. But just a very, very strong personality, and a person who just have a lot of resolve and a lot of strength, mental strength, spiritual strength, and in the past, physical strength. And what I'm realizing more and more is that in the modern realm, 2023 and beyond, any person who, comes across as such a strong individual or presence, the reaction of many of the folks around them is to attempt to tear them down. This thing, or this person, this projection that may be considered or viewed or interacted with as if it's some sort of source of strength. I think it's a very human thing to desire and to work towards tearing that thing down. I myself, I'm just not wired for that. It's not my thing. I'm not into that. Again, to me, that's the opposite of common sense. Especially if people try to have some notion of, this realm is collaborative and, let's all get on the same page and sing Kumbaya and come together and make the world a better place. Well, that's never going to be accomplished by tearing me down or tearing Paul down or, any other individual who's audacious enough to present as strong, in 2023. Especially a male, a white male especially, but a male is saying, yeah, I've got a strong voice. I'm a strong character. I'm willing to put myself on display, flaws and all, character defects and all. And to me, that's not even the relevant point is, if I could accurately be described that way, that's not even the relevant point. The relevant point is the predilection on behalf, of many other people who, upon encountering such a phenomenon or such phenomenon, their reaction is to seek to tear that down, which is where, to transition into the toilet bowl earth stuff, to somebody like Toilet Bowl Earth to attack me, and this is hilarious, as a 47-year-old man, for posting an emoji in the comment section of an Aphrodite Rose Starfire vid, and as if I'm somehow doing something wrong, and as if that somehow exposes me as hypocritical. Meanwhile, Toilet Bowl Earth, going in on Paula and slaves so vociferously in the past, but then spending 2 straight days on Paul's panel, right? Like, what are we even talking about? At a certain point, I'm just confused. Like me posting an emoji on a video is now that's just an endorsement of the human being across the board with all their flaws. And by the way, this is how, if anybody's unfamiliar with the story, this is how me and Drew famously fell out recently. Was, he was attempting to have me answer for the perceived sins of OTW from the night before, which I was only tacitly aware of at the time. To have that be, to paint me with that brush, or to have that stink, to treat me as if that stink is emanating from me. But it's like, well, wait a minute. If I'm the man in the arena, the gladiator here, I'm standing on my own too here. I'm not clicked up. I'm GDI. I'm goddamn independent here. This is not, one man army. There is no putting me on a team and then somebody from that faction did something perceived as incorrect or out of bounds, and now that somehow gets transferred onto me. And we talk about the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. See, that sounds like, in what Drew's talked about with his father recently, that sounds like something Drew's dad would do. Those aren't my tactics. I don't expect Drew to answer for Toilet Bowl Earth or EBT, and vice versa, by the way. It doesn't. And meanwhile, when we talk about covert communism and collectivism and, this idea of the rugged American individual, I am that. I answer for my own. Whatever my interactions with these other personalities are, that doesn't have anything to do with me as my own character standing on my own 2 feet. I can't be, I will show enough in the realm of my own accord and my own volition that can be criticized or attacked without having to be lumped in with somebody like OTW. Nothing against OTW, but again, I'm not riding, ride or die. I don't have any people at that level. I got people who fuck with me, and I got people I fuck with, but we're not a crew. We're not a clique, and that's where and Drew tried to push back when I said that those guys never fully accepted me over at Chalk Body Outline, and I think that's it's not debatable that I was never treated as an equal or fully accepted. And part of that is my own doing. How am I going to be a one-man army GDI, but then also click up? See, it's not. I don't know that it's their fault necessarily that happened. Shout out to Seven in the house at this early AM. Yeah, the hot shotters, indeed, Woody. Get them out of here. Yeah, the tall poppy syndrome. Exactly. Well, and I do thrive on those attacks, to some extent, but I think I'm finally like growing out of that. I'm evolving past that, I think, where I really don't thrive on those sort of attacks as much. Moving into this phase with my health issues where, my energies are much more limited. I'm having to actually focus on getting proper rest, all of these things. I'm here. Actually, I need to drive, 2 hours. In fact, that reminds me, before I forget, I need to start my clock here. We're going to tell the government logs that we're doing a 15-minute pre-trip. Although I live in the truck and I'm familiar with the equipment, so I don't know what would have happened in the nighttime here. I checked the oil yesterday. That's good enough, right? I mean, I barely even shut this thing down. The engine's been off for maybe the last 2 hours. So, although this would be a good time to actually check the oil, I suppose. Nah. Yeah, when you got a job to do, you got to do it well. You got to give the other fella hell. Yeah, well, there you go. Live and let die. Yeah, come correct. Indeed. Well, and that's the thing is, I'm not out here to hold people to that standard. My job is for me to come correct. And then the times when I don't come correct, that's my job to correct, my own error. Now, when somebody comes at me incorrectly, like Aphrodite, and that's still being brought up, that got brought up on the stream last night, that I wouldn't let her speak. No, that's not true. I refuse to allow her to begin her dialogue with falsehoods directed towards me. And this idea that I'm supposed to just sit here and just allow the other person to say falsehoods about me while I'm here, that's insane. That's abuse. That's manipulation. That's gaslighting. Like, why? There just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make sense on any level. So, and I won't even try to rehash the whole thing. And then Drew, maybe I did say this, by the way. He said that I said, when Drew tried to say I was being delusional, this is his account. I have no memory of this, but apparently, hypothetically, it was on a live stream somewhere. So, maybe I'll go dig it up, but probably not. But apparently he was saying that I was delusional. See, I don't think this is what happened, but now he's reframing it as if he called me out for being delusional, and I responded with that I'm entitled to my delusion. Again, who knows? Let's just assume I said that. If I say that, that's I only speak in a context in that regard. Like, when I talk about correct philosophy is the absence of incorrect philosophy, like that's an aphorism, right? And I'm high level at writing these aphorisms. Well, I'm entitled to my delusion is not an aphorism that I've ever written. Is that something I could potentially say strategically in a context, in a back and forth? Yeah, possibly. Now, was that said as a way to point out the error in somebody else's, argument or thinking? See? And why can't Drew remember the larger context? And I run into this with all kinds of people. My own mom, she loves to just out of nowhere just say, well, you said, and then a one sentence statement just completely taken out of context. And I'm like, look, I never said that. And she's like, yes, you did. I said, no, I said that in a context. I didn't just, we weren't just sitting quietly and then I said that one sentence connected to nothing else. I mean, just repeating someone's statement out of context in that way completely changes the meaning, you know. But then these are people that are otherwise good people, right? Meanwhile, I don't run around doing that to anybody, and if I do, please correct me. Now, I might ask them to clarify, like, "Hey, I happen to, didn't you say this or that?" And then that gives the other person the opportunity to provide the context if I'm unable to remember the context. But how come I can remember more or less the context of a lot of these things? But other people, now, are they unable to remember or are they conveniently forgetting? Again, now we're back to the father and the son and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree kind of thing. This sounds like the type of things Drew's father would do, right? Well, let's talk about the kind of things Benton's dad does. Well, Benton's dad has no friends, right? No lasting friendships. And that's, when Drew said that to me, after he ended his live stream, our last morning show, our aborted last morning show, and then he came on my panel, which I do get fired up. So I was fired up. However, I do believe I control myself quite well, being as emotional as I can be. So when somebody says something like that about more or less blaming me for all of my relations, my not having long lasting friendships, and then by the way, blaming me for this falling out between me and Drew, and then further extrapolating, okay, well now Benton is getting in good with Paul, and then based on this pattern, at some point I will do the same thing to Paul, is what Drew is attempting to imply, which the logic, I see the logic behind all of that. However, it's based on a false premise that, and this shows a lot about Drew's character, this is based on this false premise that, Drew is in the catbird seat, he's in the exalted position in our, whatever our metaversal relationship has been, and that he can do no wrong. See? And so if there's a falling out, then that's me breaking up with him, is what he called that. So I did that, right? So in further extrapolating that, well, Benton, and I had many close friendships in my 20s and my 30s. Well, I would say teens until through my late 20s. Was very social. I was very successful socially. Had a lot of strong, close friendships with people. Certainly. In my much lesser evolved state, by the way. But then ascribing the blame to me for those not continuing. Well, certainly I bear some of that responsibility, right? And I did straight up nuke some of those relationships. Certainly, I'll own that. Some of them I firebombed on purpose. I can think of one in particular that I just on purpose torched it, right? Now, my best friend from college, who's an Indian but born in America, an Arkansas Indian, grew up in Arkansas. His parents were from India. That we had a falling out, but that was mainly because he didn't like how I responded in a certain scenario. But see, that's the building up of resentments over time. It's never that one, incident, right? Same thing with me and Drew. It's not that one incident. It's a build up over time. See, and I think it comes back to my agreeableness and my adaptability, where I have this ability to adapt to the other person. Now, some of that was programmed into me by the cult, the Jehovah's Witnesses, in order to facilitate, trying to bring people into this cult, right? So I was trained to be that way to some extent, but then, certain aspects of my personality certainly lean towards agreeableness. right? Wanting to get along, people pleasing. I know I don't seem, I may not seem like a people pleaser, but I certainly fit that bill to some extent at times. Give me a second. Let me, I need to certify the logs from yesterday. Got to remain focused here. And that, by the way, that is the title of the stream here, focus or lack thereof. And that's one of the major, and ever since I've been interfacing with these so-called truth communities, I've been noticing these various aspects and these trends. One of was a lot of delusion and denial early on, closeted Trump fans. Well, lately I'm noticing a lack of focus on the part of many people, especially in the the Paul enslaved, not Paul himself, but a lot of these bozos like O'Shea who orbit around Paul, right? And I'm going to critique anybody. I'll critique anybody at any time. It's if they can't take it, they can't take it. Not really my problem. Give me a second. I want to check in with the chat here. I guess I'm going to have to get on my phone. Are we leaving too early? No, we're right on time. We're right on time. Is Tommy in the house? Yeah, what's up, Tommy? Good to see you, brother. Well, and that's the thing is, yeah, my dad also had close friendships in his teen years and through his 20s, and then, has none. Is there something? Now I'm trying to think about his dad. I don't know that his dad had close friends, but his dad was, the famous football player who, would have had all of these ties to the community, strong ties to the community and family. Well, again, Drew's talking about the broken families, and on Paul's panels, many people speak as if it's because there's younger folks too. It's not just all my age and older. It's not 50-year-olds across the board. So there's a lot of talk of these broken families. Well, apparently Drew polled his audience, and it was like only like 43% came from broken homes. Now that's still a lot, but dude, I grew up in a home with my siblings and both my parents. I mean, just imagine how off the rails I would be, without coming from an intact home, right? So I still have none of my relationships with my immediate family are fractured. Now they are strained at times. I'll say that, and it's getting there with my mom again. Although I would attribute a lot of that to what the bioweapon and the fake pandemic have done to her brain, and then now because she's never really taken care of herself, she's put herself in a position for the health system to prey upon her for profit. So they're most likely in the process of stringing her out on opiates. And then I know she's going to be in bed with this hip replacement. And the thing about me is, I'm hard to deal with. I say things, and even when I try to control myself, I'm out in left field some of the time. And a person who's in physical pain and cranky and agitated, that's the last thing they want to hear is some of Benton's nonsense. I mean, that is a self-selecting group, right? The audience for Benton's nonsense. Wow, Portugal has a 92% divorce rate. I had no idea. That's wild. Yeah, as a Esoteric warrior, it's a little bit regrettable. But yeah, thanks for letting me know, though. Please chat. Anytime another content creator goes live, please post it in the chat. So much appreciated. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I do think the friendship thing is certainly way more important, in the formative years. There's everything in its season, right? But then again, let's go back to Drew. I don't know that Drew has IRL friends. Maybe he does, and I'm just mistaken. I don't know that he has IRL friends. It's none of my bit. Like, who cares? Like, I don't care. But I guess what I find interesting is this focus on Benton. But I think I've finally figured it out. It's because Benton you know, because I present as just I'm a strong person. I always have been, thank God. You know, I had to be really, you know, to fulfill my purpose. And I do believe, you know, it's my knowing that I'm here for a reason and specific purposes that really have nothing to do with anybody else's walk or anybody else's beliefs or anybody else's views. I think that sometimes where people get confused is, you know, Benton is making all these assertions about his own life and his own path. Well, how does that reflect on the listener, right? And my thing is, well, you know, I don't think it does necessarily. Every man hath not the same office. You know, we don't. My function is not your function, and vice versa. You know, if I'm willing to believe I was intelligently created, or I, you know, whatever my spirit is, my essence, you know, incarnated into this form for specific reasons. You know, and you know, Z, when I tuned into Z yesterday, he brought me up and was alluding to, or he mentioned me after I, you know, checked in for the roll call because you know, I'm like everybody else. I want recognition also. Um, of course, you know, everybody does on some level. But you know, saying, you know, talking about peeling away the layers over time and, you know, discovering a person's personality. Well, yeah, that's, to me, that's what's interesting about humans. That's one of the most fascinating parts of a human is you can't really get, you know, it takes a long time to really get to know and understand another person. And this is where Paul and I line up a lot. Is that, you know, Paul talks about he knows other people because he knows himself, and you know, I also have found a lot of that to be true in my own life to some extent. Now, it's not across the board, but the fact that I've spent a lot of time analyzing and understanding myself, you know, I know that some of the things I'm not unique in a lot of ways. A lot of ways it comes down to, um, you know, I'm more like everybody else than I am, you know, I'm more similar to everybody else than I am dissimilar. This guy actually going to park here? This is amazing to see this. Or no, he's leaving. And some of the things these guys do is just fascinating. All right, 6 more minutes and we can roll out. Good to see you, Gary Baxter. What's happening? Gary Baxter reaching out to Tommy. That'd be cool, man. Live stream it, guys. Gary he may not be down for that though. At least record the audio. Somebody bring an audio recorder. And then if you don't want to publish it, you don't have to. Yeah, that'd be cool. What's up, Mike Zadunich? Good to see everybody. Man. Oh yeah, so I've still got a 2 hour and 20 minute drive. So I only drove like 300 miles yesterday because I had ordered an Amazon order, and I ended up having to wait at this truck stop for a couple of hours. And by the time the order showed up, you know, I'm already parked at a truck stop, and it's like, you know, now I'm powering down and going into rest mode. So, you know, while I could have driven a couple of more hours yesterday, you know, certainly the schedule would have allowed for it. It did not seem like the move. So here I am. And I don't know. That's another thing with this starting with this new company. You know, I'm working every day, but other than that, which is fairly normal because a lot of these guys go out, you know, 2 to 3 weeks at a time. It's even for the guys who take home time for long haul. That's pretty typical. At least 2 weeks out generally. But then a lot of those guys still take a 34, but they'll do it on the road. So I don't know if I keep running on recaps. I mean, as long as they're happy, I'm happy with the amount I'm working. Certainly, especially without the taxes being taken out. Although I'll probably have to, you know, remit some amount of fiat to the feds at some point in the future. since I haven't corrected my status, right? That's what we're calling it. Since I've yet to do that. What's up, Sherelle? Good to see you. Well, and then, something else, and I won't even say that it annoyed me about Get Chalked Up. It was more that it says a lot about Toilet Bowl's character, TBE's character, that, to some extent I get lumped in with these people like Aphrodite, right? When in reality, I've experienced some of what Aphrodite's experienced as far as, she's probably had some sort of mental breakdown. And while I don't know that I ever had a full on mental breakdown, certainly something happened many years ago. And, then living in the streets with nothing for so long. And that seems to kind of be where she's at with this whole bread truck thing. And, whether or not she comes out the other end of that remains to be seen. The reality is I have come out the other end of that. And then, Drew's saying, well, if she's got all this medical training, maybe she should, and I don't know what she should do, but he's saying maybe she should. Well, I guess this guy knew what he was doing after all. See, I tried to call him a bozo, this guy that's leaving, but I think he actually intelligently realized that the heavy haul guys doesn't drive at nighttime because they're not allowed to by law typically, since it's a permitted load. And so if this guy knows for sure that he's going to roll out, right at daylight. So, sometimes I sort of paint, I worst case scenario, and every once in a while somebody actually is thinking and reasoning properly, but it's rare, as we know. But so, the reality is, in talking about maybe she would do better. Well, look, I'm in the workforce, so in Aphrodite's, to look at how she's living, I went from living in a bread truck, a version of that, and then the one guy who did drop a lot of truth. I forget the guy's name now, Stewie, I think, saying, talking about her, like a cat, crapping in a box or whatever, So I went from that to getting job training and a certification, to drive a big rig, and combined it with my preferred lifestyle, where I still have never had to have a house or an apartment for, I don't even know when. What year was that I last? It's well over 10 years ago since I rented a house or an apartment. As far as I know, Aphrodite hasn't accomplished none of that, and until she does, you can't put me in a category with her. Not and be accurate. See, and that's not possible to do and maintain intellectual integrity. And I got to think Toilet Bowl Earth knows that. He's just being shitty, which is fine. I mean, be shitty. I expect it, I would say, on some level out of people that, a lot of people are just shitty people, just bad, shitty people. Do better is what I would say. Do better. Hang on. Now we got to tell the logs that the equipment is certified as safe to drive. Got to do that once every 24 hours by law. Delivery's technically in Illinois, but it's basically Davenport, Iowa. Man, I know what's going to happen. As soon as I hit the road, I'm going to need to use the restroom. I can already tell. But I don't need to go right now. I feel it coming. Oh well, such is life. Music called The Secret bought a bread truck years ago in Texas. Was going to convert it into a camper home. Never did live in it. Oh, you still have it? Yeah, it's in his tool shed. Interesting. Thanks, Sherelle. Congratulations on the new job. And thank you. But I do need to point out, truck driving is a bit unique in that regard, where it's generally speaking, it's super fucking easy to get a job. But thank you. I appreciate it. It's the fact that I was physically able to go back to work. That's because it was. I really didn't know, man. Honestly, so, the fact that it's going as well as it is, this is certainly a blessing. But yeah, truck driving. It's, I won't even get into it, but especially if I'm in the long run, if I'm able to earn 65 cents a mile and keep all of it, even better, right? Let the air build up here. I'm wondering if we got a flat tire on the trailer, maybe. Most of these trailers have this air system that airs up the tires. Wondering where all this air is going. Oh well. On the road again with video. How about you? I'm back, bitches. Oh, the only thing is, I guess I'm gonna have to mount a third phone up in here. I can't see the comments at all. There's an out of business. What is that? Arby's there on the right. Yeah, you know it's bad when fast food can't stay in business. Let me know if the camera gets too shaky. The way I've got this thing mounted up, it's not the first time out for this setup. Yeah, just as I expected. I knew as soon as I get on the road, I'm going to have to stop and go to the restroom. I can already tell. Funny how that works. But if I'd tried to wait around, it never would have happened. Murphy's Law on some level. Oh, I forgot. I forgot where I was. Yeah, I got to go. Yeah, we're going on the 2-lane highway up to. We're in Morris, Illinois. We're going up to. No, we're in. The hell's this place called? We're going to Morris to get on 80. I don't know why I can't remember the name of this town. The only reason I ended up here was because there's a truck stop with an Amazon locker. And it's close enough to Chicago area that the products typically show up, more or less on time without having to wait forever. Although my preferred magnesium, it's like takes almost a week. So I'm trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to buy some of that. Oh, Dwight, Illinois. Yeah, that's where I was. Give me a second. I'll see if I can fire up the YouTube on the other phone, and maybe I'll be able to read the comments. Oh yeah, this mount is terrible. Hang on, let me see if I can fix this. Yes, no bueno. Yeah, see that's more stable, but you can actually see the mount, that big black circle in the upper left corner. That's where I stuck another magnet on the phone, but then since it's not in the center of the phone, it's too unstable, unfortunately. Oh well, it is what it is. Such is life. Now I'm trying to decide. I know I'm going to keep my hotspot active, but maybe I'll downgrade to the 100 gig version because I'm not even going to come close to using up this 150 gigs the way it's going. Although maybe this video will help chew up a little more of it. Since I'm showing video now. Shout out to Robin, by the way, for the thumbnail. Oh, shit. Now, I guess I'm going to have to get a Bluetooth headset or a longer. I really just need a longer cable. This cable is just long enough that if I make a sudden movement, it yanks on the phone. Any sudden movement. Not that we want to look at the windshield wiper either, but oh well. Maybe I'll reposition this thing later. What's up, Sly Shy? Good to see you. Let me know if I start buffering. We're headed out into the country here. And we got pretty good signal. Pretty good signal. Anything on y'all's mind today? Trying to go over, I made a lot of mental notes about DrewStream. I guess I need to, I knew when I was in Walmart that there was something I needed. I needed a notepad. That's what I needed. I need to be able to take notes. The mental notes can be hit or miss. Oh, and there's nowhere to stop out here, of course. This is just great. Yeah, I think I would have hung out at the truck stop for another 20 minutes if I'd realized. I just totally forgot I wasn't getting on the interstate. Yeah, I agree. Moving is stressful, Sherelle, and you know, it's definitely not the reason why I chose to live outside with nothing for so long, but part of it was just getting to a certain age and having moved and having so many items, and it's just that shit gets old, man. Just having a place to live gets old. Some cases. For me anyway. Speaking only for myself, of course. Yeah, we're driving again, JT. That's right. Indeed, sir. Indeed. Oh, and I saw this article about City of Dallas is mandating that all of its city workers, for anybody who's transitioning or has transitioned, the city workers have to use the transitioners' preferred pronoun. But then people have some idea of, Texas as being a red state and MAGA and all this. Kind of hearkening back to yesterday's conversation about all cities are blue cities. And then I was working in Dallas, or out of Dallas rather, when the fake pandemic kicked off. And Dallas went hardcore for the mask. Houston did also. I'm assuming I wasn't going to Austin. I'm assuming Austin was. Austin is terrible for truck drivers. There's really nowhere to park a big rig, or effectively nowhere in Austin. Austin is not hospitable to big trucks. So I found that interesting. Not unexpected, certainly, that would be the case about the transitioners. Let's see if I can get in here on StreamYard and read your comments. What's this coming our way? Oversized load. Well, he's earning his money driving that thing. No thanks. Well, folks seem to be in a good mood in the live chat. Always good to see that. Well, and then going back to the get chalked up, what I see with some of these folks, and this probably applies to Drew and TBE, is this they seem to just believe themselves to be above it all in some ways. And my thing is, yeah, I can be arrogant and all of this, but I'm in it, whatever that is, right? I'm not I'm as good or as bad as anybody else. Like, I'm in it. I'm not above it. I'm above some things, of course, but look no further than what I mentioned earlier about TBE wanting to imply that I'm somehow doing something wrong for posting an emoji on, one of Aphrodite's videos, or maybe her posts. I don't even remember, but then he, is critical of Paul for months and months and months, and then next thing you know, he's on Paul's panel 2 days in a row for like hours on end, right? Which is fine. I don't care what he does, but it's like, really? So I'm not supposed to post in somebody's comment section, but he can do whatever he wants. It's like having a standard for me that he's not willing to have for himself. Ultimately, I think that's what bothers me, and that's when I say come correct. That's not coming correct. How can somebody try to hold me to a standard that they're not holding themselves to? I'm confused by that. Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty good stream overall, I would have to say. I obviously am critical, and I have critique, but yeah, it was a good stream overall, especially that Stewie guy, whoever that is. He came in with some really good takes about Aphrodite. In my opinion. But then, Toilet Bowl Earth, and then, RT having a good intention and saying, well, I wouldn't lump Benton in with these other people like Aphrodite, which, again, thank you for having some integrity, right? But then it's Toilet Bowl Earth. And then Drew, of course, again, back to me never fully being accepted. He puts me in a category with those people. But then, Toilet Bowl Earth is, I'll put him in that category. But it's like, well, yeah, but I'm not in. Maybe I would have been if I had not grown and adapted and changed and overcome things that Aphrodite still seems to be struggling with, right? That I've clearly am able to climb. So, out of one side of their mouth saying maybe Aphrodite should go back to working in her field she's trained in. And here's Benton, who I got my training while I was doing my version of living in a bread truck. and went from living in a bread truck, metaphorically, to driving a big rig, and did it. And when I got to my company training, me and 50 people in a room, because that was a peak time, and they were hiring a gang of truck drivers. This was like 2018, I guess. This was the build up to the fake pandemic, right? And they're at an $8,000 hiring bonus. This was like peak hiring at the time. And the black fella running the classroom portions of the training, he tells us, hey, the turnover is so high in this industry that 90% of everybody who gets a CDL and goes into truck driving, they're not driving a truck 1 year later. And then Benton's strength of character, and then my personality is, oh, you throw down the gauntlet at me and you say 9 out of 10 people who go into this, they don't continue. Well, immediately I said, well, no matter what, do at least a year in this job. And in fact, when I got my CDL through Goodwill, Goodwill sent me to truck driving school. I chose between driving a big rig long haul, or I was considering driving a city bus in Austin, right? So I wasn't even sold on, long haul truck driving. But when I heard that, I said, well, I will be in this industry a year from now. And in fact, ended up sticking it out 14 months with a mega carrier, and wanted to quit, many times. But I knew what was best for me in that career path was to get at least 1 year experience. It's best. It's not necessary, but it's best if the new person to the industry, if they're able to work, 12 straight months with the company they started with. That's considered. It looks good on the person. So we see Aphrodite's descended, chosen for whatever reason, she's, descended into this lifestyle, and a lifestyle that I use to my own advantage. Whether or not she does that remains to be seen. She has the potential to, make lemonade out of lemons, but until that happens, you can't put me in it. I don't fit in that category. Never have, never will. Same thing with. Same thing if anybody remembers this, Rump character, ruthless. Yeah, I have some of those same personality traits as some of these, folks, but I don't fully fit in with them. Or just a gal, Jag, if anybody remembers that character. Yeah, that's right, Gary Baxter. I do stand alone. You're damn right. Again, rugged the concept of American rugged individualism, like to me, that's some of not all the programming's bad, right? I do think there are certain notions of American, a rugged American individual. There's something to that on some level, I would say. It's not, not for nothing, as some would say. Well, but Gary, that you're right, except the country folk went for it way more than is portrayed, but they didn't go for it as hardcore as the city folk. I agree with you there. But this idea that just it was everybody in the city was masked up and nobody in the country was wearing a mask. That's a lot of country folks went for the mask, and a lot of country folks went for the injection. That's just reality. But yeah, certainly to a much. The city folk went for it to a much greater extent. That's absolutely, but certainly. But and again, this is back to that strength of character. Some people are meant to sort of, although none of us truly stand alone in this realm. We all collaborate. I'm here speaking with you folks. No man is an island and all of these concepts, but yeah, in a way, you're damn right I do. Proud of it. And so as much as I never fit in fully with the CBO crowd, I'll never fully fit in with the Paul and slave crowd. But then, if Drew and I had something of a friendship, and look, I don't know, I'm not, I don't know, I can't speak for Drew. I'm not, he said he's done with me or whatever, but, I don't hold people to statements like that. And, I can get along with anybody that can get along with me, but what's never going to work in the long run is this idea of, he's above it all and he's in the power position in the catbird seat, and then anything that goes wrong will just always be Benton's fault, right? Like, absolutely not. I'll own my part in whatever happens, but it's never going to be 100% my fault. That's not a thing. It's not a thing that can happen. I'll own whatever my burden to bear is. I'll bear it. And then, like with Toilet Bowl Earth, I don't have any animosity. I think it's just, at the end of the day, we're looking at a personality conflict. As far as that goes. Although he's got a lot to work on himself, but not everybody. I do have whatever I chose to go through living in the streets for so long. I used that time to really figure a lot of this bullshit out about myself that a lot of other folks just never have. Until a person's undergone that process, they haven't undergone it. Nobody can do it for them. And most people, they never go through whatever that process is. And it's a transcendence. It's transcending, the limitations that are, one is born into, or that, whatever it is that individuals are afflicted by at the level of their psychology and at the level of their programming. I'm not unique in that regard. Oh, yeah, the hoarding is real, Sherelle. And, even me with very limited space to acquire items, I've got a storage, and which is a small one, thank God, but, I've got a storage, I've got a car, although there's very little in the car right now, but, this big rig is full of my personal items. And I don't think I have anything at any of my relatives' houses. My dad, I know at a certain point when he was descending into poverty, more or less, my dad has been like a reverse Horatio Alger, if anybody knows what Horatio Alger means in this context. A rags to riches. My dad was very affluent and acquired, based on, being from Arkansas and all of this, he had a pretty high net worth for the area anyway. And then, is living on Social Security now and owns nothing, effectively, has no property or no anything. Shit, I lost my point. What was I talking about? Oh, I noticed at a certain point he started leaving a lot of his belongings, like at our family's houses, and then they would become super annoyed over time, and then eventually I think they just would end up throwing his shit out. So fortunately, I haven't done any of that. Although I did have, now that they're no longer there, my hardware was stored at my mom's house for a couple of years. But then, with the way my mom's been affected mentally with, the bioweapon attack, and then her husband, who's not my dad, I was fully grown when they got together. He sort of lost his mind at a certain point when my mom was in the ICU, and he was freaking out when I had the broken foot, was hanging out on the couch, wanting me to go get a COVID test. So I climbed up on my crutches, loaded up my car, and drove with a broken right foot, to another town and checked into a motel. get away from that nonsense. Fox News watching MAGA types, by the way. Well, her husband, my mom's son. Right. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Yeah, I mean, I guess there is some truth to that on some level, right? I mean, I guess you don't really what can one actually own in this realm, you know? And that was another, you know, like a side benefit of me living the way I lived for so long. Just living out of a literally, you know, effectively everything I owned to fit into a large hiking backpack for many years consecutively. You know, I think that sort of broke me of, you know, attachment to objects. Although I do get attached to some of my objects, I will say. But mine is more of like I like to have specific things. So like if I have a coffee grinder, I usually I get attached to like a specific type, right? So it's not even really that I have to have a coffee grinder necessarily. Oh, looks like we had a smash up here. One vehicle smash up. Or did somebody, you guys can't see it, but it's off to the left. The popo. Quit coffee? You quit coffee, Gary? I will say I've noticed because at times I get completely off of coffee at times. Although with my health issues, it's good for me, like especially my gallbladder, even my kidneys to some extent, believe it or not. The gout, coffee actually helps the gout. But my mood is actually better when I don't drink coffee, believe it or not. I'm a little more cranky on coffee for whatever reason. And then what happened with EBT stream? Did he get too drunk and pass out? I wonder what happened. I guess we won't know unless he pops in and tells us. Yeah, well, truck driving and coffee go hand in hand. It'd be very difficult to do this job without coffee. I have to say that. But so when I'm not truck driving, sometimes I'll just go off of coffee. Well, actually, caffeine is also a diuretic. So, like when I had to go it makes you go to the bathroom. So, when I had to go take this drug test, I actually got an extra cup of coffee on the way, and I made a joke, you know, to the people because usually, we make fun of these lefties and these blue-haired people at Starbucks or whatever, but they're not dumb. I mean, they are kind of with it intellectually. So I made a joke about how, I'm going for a drug test. So I said, I've already had my coffee. This is, more or less so that I'll be able to perform the task, right? Because I think it was my mom that pointed this out, because people will think, oh, you need to pee in a cup, well, drink water. Well, water doesn't make you go to the bathroom, but coffee does. Like, water is not a diuretic. And in fact, it can have the opposite effect. It can actually, drinking water can make you hold on to water, believe it or not. Yeah, cigarettes are just, don't even get me started on cigarettes. The reality, and I know a lot of people in these so-called truth communities smoke, and that's another thing. Imagine being into a lot of these concepts, and be a cigarette smoker. Like, what? But the reality is, out of the things that people do on a regular basis, and probably I'm going to have to put alcohol in this category too, but at least alcohol gets you high, right? Like, cigarettes is the most unintelligent thing a person can do on a regular basis. Like, it's just stupid. You think about it, like, there's no benefit, number one. It costs a lot of money, number two, and it ruins your health, number three. Like, so what's in it for me, right? And then, alcohol, like I say, at least you get fucked up, but the reality is that alcohol is just straight up poison. And again, I'm one of those have to learn the hard way types in a lot of regards. Like, in retrospect, my life would have been much better had I just never drank alcohol ever. And I never really had a drinking problem, although I was a binge drinker. Most of my adult life, I would engage in binge drinking, but then I would also go literal years and never touch the stuff. But the daily drinking never happened until the fake pandemic. Not using that as an excuse, just more of a correlation, right? Yeah. Bong toke. Well, Gary, yeah, that's the thing is it's the way the drug testing works, it's just not worth it. The reality is I probably could smoke pot and minimize my chances of not getting popped. But the problem is that the consequences of failing a drug test are so high in this industry that the risk reward is just, it's too unbalanced. And again, I'm just not going to carry around synthetic urine. It's not a thing I'm going to do. And like Tommy pointed out, it has to be kept at a certain temperature, unless, Tommy claimed just whoever the phlebotomist was when he submitted his sample just chose to overlook that the sample was not at the proper temperature. Some people are just cool like that. So like when I take this drug test to get hired, if I'm going to play the odds, I know most likely I won't have to take another drug test for a while. So probably I could, indulge for some period of time, most likely. But then again, like when I got my learner's permit, my commercial learner's permit, the first thing they told us, in my truck driving school, they said, okay, now that you have your learner's permit, you're now under the federal, drug testing. So they said, right now you can be randomly tested. Well, a week later, one person in our class out of 8 people got randomly tested, and guess who it was? The only white guy who just happened to have long hair and a long beard at the time. And I'm just like, really? Are you sure this is random? It's almost like somebody was like, okay, we don't believe this guy. Surely he's the type to get clean enough for the test and then go right back to smoking dudes, But I knew that I was probably going to start with a company where I would have to provide a hair sample. So I knew I in fact went an entire year without any cannabis just to be on the safe side. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And I'm against drug testing. And by the way, the only thing that really stays in one system is cannabis. The reality is, unless somebody's actually a hardcore meth or cocaine addict, like if somebody wants to just do some cocaine every once in a while, they're not going to fail a drug test. You know, it's out of the body so quickly. You know, I think it's fucked up. Why can't I just occasionally smoke cannabis? Part of it, the way in which the body processes it has a lot to do with it. The fact that I'm not really able to do it. Well, now we get into what do you call a cigarette. So I disagree. Musical The Secret says I think vaping is worse than cigarettes. I disagree if you're talking about a pack of Marlboros, because if you buy a pack of cigarettes at the store, those things are scientifically engineered to be as addictive as possible. It's there's so many chemical additives. Now, if you just do what I did, so like when I had my cigarette business in Eugene, Oregon, I was buying these gigantic bags of pipe. They call it pipe tobacco, but it's loose tobacco, right? And while I'm sure that has chemicals in it, I'm sure it's processed chemically, it doesn't have chemicals added to it to make it addictive, right? So the reason why I first started buying that is because me and ex-wife number two, and she smoked Pall Mall Light 100. So Pall Malls were eating up such a high proportion of our, the little bit of amount of money we were able to take in. It was all going to Pall Mall Light 100s. Was eating up probably 50% of our, disposable income, right? It was basically 50% gasoline, 50% Pall Malls. And because I wasn't really buying anything. Whatever little bit of supplements I was on, maybe. Oh, am I speeding? It might be 65 out here. Surely not. And so I figured out somebody had one of these big metal machines that it shoves the tobacco into the tube. You can buy these cartons of tubes that have the filter. Like it looks like just like a real cigarette when you get done with it. Looks just like a cigarette with the filter and all. So I started running the numbers, and I figured out I could manufacture these cigarettes for like, I think 5 cents a piece, like all in total price. So what's that? 20 times, what's that? $1 a pack? Versus what, $4.50 a pack for Pall Malls? So it economically made a lot of sense. So then once I started buying all of that, it was like, oh, I can actually sell these cigarettes. Not only can she smoke for free, now we can derive some income. But what I noticed is when she went from the Pall Malls to that pipe tobacco, she went through withdrawals just from those chemicals, right? So I do agree with you. If somebody's actually spending the money like for American Spirits, or just, getting their own roll your own, yeah, vaping probably is worse than that. But I contend that, if somebody's smoking Marlboros or Pall Malls or, whatever the fuck, I think that's got to be worse than vaping. And meanwhile, I've vaped here and there. It's never really done anything to me, But I can feel it, when I was doing the gas station cannabinoids, it definitely affected my lungs. But I'm a heavy user. I go from zero to all day, every day, very quickly. And I'll tell you right now, man, that THCO is legit. But I do have an addictive personality. I have a personality where, if a little is good, a lot is great. I love to get fucked up, man. And dude, the THCO and the THCP that shit is off the charts, man. Fuck. By the way, Delta 8 is nothing. Fuck that bullshit. Is Aphrodite in the house? What's up, Aphrodite? Well, I was talking about you earlier. I don't know if you heard any of that. And since I'm keeping it real, and I'm critical by nature, I provide critiques. But then I do, I give credit where credit's due, and I do, uh, Aphrodite gets credit from me for certain things, but then I will criticize her. But then again, anybody who starts a YouTube channel and just puts themselves out there, you know, myself included, I am inviting some of that, right? But I don't have any beef with anybody ultimately. So, um, but I don't know if you noticed this, Aphrodite. They were trying to shit on me for posting for a positive emoji in one of your videos or maybe one of your posts. But I like some of Aphrodite's posts. Aphrodite, some of the stuff in her community tab, I think she notices things that nobody else notices. Like, I really do. And at the end of the day, I'm not in it for the people and the personalities. My primary focus is always going to be the ideas. And the reality is, yeah, Aphrodite's on some kind of, out in left field, a cult. I don't even say a cult, but she's into some ideas that I feel like I've explored in the past to some extent, and now I'm not into anymore. But the fact that I'm not into those ideas, that doesn't negate the ideas, right? It's just the fact that Aphrodite's actually into ideas, I'm going to resonate with her on some level. And when sometimes she's right on the money. And sometimes she notices things at a psychological level or an anthropological level. I've noticed, especially if you tie it into like even ideas of gender studies or feminism or, I've seen, and I'd have to bring up her channel to really even, I don't remember specifically what she did, but sometimes she's just right on the money. And why wouldn't why wouldn't I celebrate that? But then now that gets turned into like, I'm not endorsing the human being, right? Like, I'm not saying she's above reproach across the board. Meanwhile, I wouldn't even say that about myself, right? So why would I say that about another person? You know, and some, there's going to be a clash of characters to some extent. But see, I'm not scared to support you, Aphrodite. I'm not ever going to be able to do that across the board. But I do agree that there is some level of, because somebody like Drew, while he has pretended to accept you at certain times, I think you fall into a group with me on some level, while I say that I've never been fully accepted, I think the same thing with Aphrodite. And then, so because Drew, he does sort of set the tone at the level of popularity contest, and, I'm having trouble finding the words, but some people I've noticed, they'll try to sort of gain popularity by playing up to certain notions, and Drew kind of spearheads a lot of that, right? So there is a fear, I think, of being seen as aligning with Aphrodite, at the risk of falling out of favor. Well, I don't care about any of that, because I'll go out here as a rugged individual, Benton stands alone. I'll make my own popularity, and I will win people to my own cause if I need to, right? It's like, it reminds me of something from, Mad Child, one of my favorite rappers, said, I'm unpopular, but I'm able to manipulate your social circle. Like, if I need to, I will be popular through certain, possibly nefarious means. I know I'm so good at certain aspects of, the dark arts of personality, interpersonal relations, dude. I'm not scared, because I don't need to garner support through these, passive aggressive codependent means that I see a lot of people trying to engage in. And that's, when I talk about everybody always reveals themselves, and through this whole falling out with me and Drew, a lot of people tip their hands, and it's not the people who come here every day. And the thing about Aphrodite, that's a person with a lot of courage, come what may, right? But I don't ride with anybody across the board. Aphrodite included. But I'm not scared to give her credit. But I'll also provide a critique and a criticism if I feel like it's warranted. Of course I will. Why wouldn't I? You know? No, I didn't say you did meth, Aphrodite. See, that's. Let's be specific, Aphrodite. I did not say that you do meth because I have no way of knowing if you do meth. What I said was that my personal experience living in the streets with nothing is that the people I encountered, which number one, anybody I've ever spent time with that was what I call a street person, every single one of them at least casually uses number one. Number two, I don't discredit somebody if somebody chooses to take a substance, that doesn't discredit them. Number three, I have no way of knowing what substances you put in your body, Aphrodite. Number four, the point I was making is that I encountered person after person who I knew for a fact was taking that drug, who claimed not to take the drug. And after a period of time, I realized, oh, they really believe they don't do the drug. So what I'm saying is, whether you do the drug or not, Aphrodite, I have no way of knowing. What I'm saying is that I know for a fact that some human beings take the drug, say they don't take the drug, and believe they don't take the drug. Now, whether or not that's you, I have no idea. And I don't know if you know this. Drew straight up asked me, I think it was Drew, it might have been somebody else. It probably wasn't Drew. It might have been EBT. I don't know. But somebody from their crew straight up asked me if I thought you did meth. I said, I don't know. Because how could I know? Right? Meanwhile, I know I can exhibit characteristics of it. I've never even tried it. So, make of that what you will, right? Ultimately, it's none of my business, Aphrodite, but I will say that it's possible for a human being to abuse the drug, claim not to do the drug, and then actually believe they don't do the drug. So whether that's you or not, I have no idea. So, but do you recognize, Aphrodite, that you coming in and defending yourself is completely fine, but that the ways in which you're defending yourselves are going to be viewed, yourself's going to be viewed in a specific way, separate from your own intention, right? And ultimately, we'll never really know the truth because we don't until some of us, up until we interface with you in the physical realm, we really don't know you. No, I agree. There's a lot of hypocrisy about what you're saying. Okay, well, I don't have any way of knowing that, so I will take you at your word, Aphrodite. But I will also point out that my personal experience has borne out that there are people who will do the drug, say they don't do the drug, and believe they don't do the drug. Whether that's you or not, I have no idea. That's all I'm saying. Now, you can say, well, Benton is implying that Aphrodite does meth. I don't know. If you forced me to make a bet, I would say that you probably used to do it. Is it possible that you don't do it now? Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. Maybe you like me have never done it. How would I know? I'm playing the odds to some extent. And I'll give you, by the way, I'll give you credit for even being willing to have the conversation. And meanwhile, you're right on the money about the hypocrisy of these folks. Just look at what Toilet Bowl Earth did to me. Trying to say I'm in the wrong for posting a supportive comment on Aphrodite's video. Meanwhile, Toilet Bowl Earth is critical of Paul for months on end, and then next thing you know, here he is on Paul's panel. Right. So yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good point, Gary. That's a good point. And meanwhile, what did I, look how strongly I push back on people who've tried to give Tommy shit. I've just said, listen, I said, how can I be in a community of people that won't shut the fuck up about freedoms and rights and freedoms and America and freedom, but then constantly give based on this notion of what he puts in his body. Under freedom, doesn't Tommy get to put whatever the fuck he wants into his own body? Isn't it Tommy's body, Tommy's choice, by the way? Ultimately, is it any of my fucking business what Aphrodite puts in her body? No, it's not. Now, I can have my opinions about her behavior, right? Same thing with Tommy, but, how can we have freedom and individualism and mom and apple pie and all of this and libertarianism, but Tommy's wrong for doing meth in the past? Oh, and the same people who will make fun of Tommy, their own families are most likely on Adderall. But that's okay because a man or a woman in a white coat said it's okay. I mean, do you see how insane this is? So whatever Aphrodite's doing, I don't see that as any more or less insane than what anybody else is doing. The thing that people find issue with Aphrodite, and this is what I would like to impress upon you that I don't think you realize, is that when you live your life in this insane realm where almost everybody is living insane to some degree, but then you are the type of personality, kind of like myself, who will just put it out there for everybody and say, look, this is what I am, deal with it. That's going to be construed some type of way while everybody else is seeking to minimize those same aspects, whatever their version of those aspects is. They want to hide it so they can pretend like that doesn't exist for them. Can you at least acknowledge that dynamic? I think if you are able, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm saying if you did this in your own life, I think it would help you, Aphrodite. That's my opinion. Because that's something that's helped me, is to recognize, oh, I'm a person who just doesn't give a fuck on some level. And I'm strong enough to just put my own, I will air my own dirty laundry to some extent and just say, hey, this is who I am, deal with it. And that, these other people really aren't able to do that. So I do believe if Aphrodite fully accepts that this is just how people are, Aphrodite, and you and I can't really do anything about it. What's up, AJ Lloyd? Good to see you. I think your life will be better. Again, my opinion. I have no way of knowing what you should do because I'm not you. But just my opinion, right? But whatever it is, that certain people have certain personality traits. And again, I do think, Aphrodite, it comes down to this. I think you have exhibited a certain strength of character. And this is what I started the live stream talking about is, and I actually, I said all of this about myself, meaning that I believe I've demonstrated a certain strength of character, and that it seems to me like I'm not the type to attack someone because they're strong. But it seems to me like a lot of folks, when they see someone like a Paul Enslaved or me or you, they're always going to seek to tear down that's whatever that symbol of strength is. They're going to seek to tear it down for whatever reason. And I think that's probably what's happening to you on some level, whether you recognize it or not, And then all the victimhood stuff, that's debatable on some level, right? It's nuanced and it does become political at some point with the the left-right paradigm, and I'm very opinionated with certain aspects of that stuff. And, certainly believe that we views, in my own opinion. Which is back to the character, you know, I don't, it's just not strategically and being manipulative, you know, by nature, even though I choose not to act on it most of the time, there's just not enough in it for me to seek to curry favor by, you know, minimizing these aspects of my true personality. You know, why would I? When I know I'm strong enough and I'm courageous enough, much like Aphrodite, who is exhibiting a certain strength of character, you know, and good on you, by the way. Which meanwhile, that's not a, you know, we can say, well, that's, you know, a certain type of strength. That's not limited to male or female. See, and this is why I talk about strong women. It's not limited only to males. Many women also exhibit the strength of character, and I have, you know, I have that in my own family. Thank God. Which is why I can't ever really be a misogynist. You know, I don't consider men superior to women. I really don't. Now, we are better in some ways, certainly. Women are better than us in some ways, but, you know, well, and I guess really misogyny would be a hatred of women. Well, I've never hated women, but I do hate humanity, certainly, on some level. But I certainly would place men above women in certain ways. You know, contextually, yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't want to, you know, I want to be clear about what I'm saying here. Well, yeah, well, those aren't men, though, Gary. See, so when you hear people say that, talk about a man being intimidated by a woman, no, that's not a thing. But a weak male, that's not a man. See, that's it, because man is a status that's attained, and a man, you know, can do things to be viewed as less of a man. So, yeah. So I agree, Gary. Except those aren't actually men. It's a male. And increasingly, what we're seeing in the younger generations is something I've talked about, where, you know, I was like, because I was born into a time warp, you know, in 1975 in Southeast Arkansas, me and all of my peers were socialized with literal rites of passage, and we passed from boyhood to manhood through an overt, you know, process, right? Through a facilitated by the local culture, and I was never gonna. Me and my peers would never be accepted fully in our communities until we exhibited these overtly strong masculine traits, whether we wanted to or not, whether we were scared to or not. Right. And when males are forced to do that, what I've seen is males do that. What I've seen in the younger generations is since society has now removed those mechanisms of forcing the boy to become a man, well, left to their own devices, many of these boys never become men, to their own detriment and to society's detriment. Such that when I interface with a lot of these males of these younger generations, they cannot interface with me on my level because I attained that level and they never did. Therefore, they are not the same thing as me. So just like they can't intimidate me, well, it's like, yeah, guess what? There are men who are fucking terrifying. So when you hear about women talking about, you know, that some of these men are you know, scary and all of this, it's like, yeah, guess what? You're right, and that also, yeah, some of them are. I'm scared of some of them. Some of these motherfuckers are terrifying. You know, I'm not. You know, I'm not scared to admit that. It's like, so yeah, there's not a woman on the planet scary enough to intimidate me. Why? Because I've been doing battle with males and men my entire life, some of which are fucking terrifying. And I necessarily had to develop strategies for dealing with some of these motherfuckers, you know, without ever getting physical, by the way. You know, and my mind is my weapon, you know. So, you know, thank God I didn't have to go to prison at a young age, but if I did, I would have been just fine. I would have done just fine in prison. Why? Because I have certain psychological characteristics where I would have been able to do just fine. In spite of my attractiveness as a young person, my physical attractiveness and my as a young person and my you know, slight stature. Well, but and I will push back a little bit, Austin, but I'll say this: women are still women. It's males that are not men anymore. Increasingly, women are still mostly fulfilling their role, mostly, although it with a lot of dysfunction, right? So what you see is women are still women, but then are increasingly having to pick up the slack because men are no longer men, right? So if I had to give a scorecard, I think women are doing better at fulfilling their own roles than men are. That's just my opinion, right? Which doesn't really reflect on me. And you know, I've given Austin enough of a hard time that you know I will go ahead and resist the urge to go in on Austin a little bit here, but you know. Well, I would, Austin, except I really don't have the energy to bring you up, and nothing personal, but maybe later I will. But my work day is probably going to be long enough uh, that I got to manage my energies, and you know, me talking, you know, that's a certain amount of a drain, but you know, I am an actual hermit, and listening does drain me. So please don't take offense, but I'm not able to bring you up right now. And in fact, probably not going to be streaming for much longer. Probably going to wrap it up soon because I'm most likely going to. I'm starting my day behind schedule and probably going to be a long day. But if you want to, I mean, I'm down for whatever. You know, if you guys want to do a stream later, you know, I can go live and just have bring people up, and I'll just listen. You know, and I'll just, you know, check out more. If I need to, I'll just do my job and let y'all take it away. Like I have no problem, you know, being the facilitator. So maybe, well, let me put it to you this way, Austin. Maybe I'll bring you up in a minute, but we're going to need somebody else to come up and host. And you know, if we can get you and a couple other people up here, I'll check out and go do other shit. So we can all work together. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Woody. By 2030, half of all 40-year-old women will be childless. Yeah, and you know, my sisters, strong, independent women, both of them, uh, you know, they both had children in their early 20s, right? And that's my thing is, you know, this idea of a woman going out and having a career and being a professional and, you know, behaving in stereotypically masculine ways, that's bad for the women. It's bad for women to get to the age of 35 or 40 and then start having kids. That's not good. And it's bad. It's bad for the kids. It's bad for society, in my opinion, right? These are my opinions. So how fast can UPS go? I think they can go. I think he can go faster than 70. So we'll let him have it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not able to do that right now, Austin, but it's because I'm having to be a big boy, and even though I don't want to, I'm having to learn to manage to more effectively balance my energies so that because the reality is I really burned the candle at both ends with my last job, and you know, I was more or less a basket case by the time that experience came to an end. So I need to be more balanced through this, whatever this version of truck driving is going to be. truck driving in combination of but I mostly blame the women just for the. I mean, sorry, check that. I mostly blame the men, Aphrodite, for the record, just in case we're unclear about that. Although that doesn't, women are not blameless, but yeah, Woody. And my thing is, you know, and this is what I tell my family, because I'm literally the only person in my family that never had kids. There's nobody else in my immediate family or my extended family that's childless. I am the only one. So, although interestingly, my mom's current husband also never had kids, but he raised some other people's kids, which that's a whole other can of worms. I never would have raised anybody else's kids, me personally, but I don't look down on other people for doing that. But I think that comes back to the stereotypical alpha thing. As a young person, I never would have accepted anybody but my father. You know, I never would have accepted a stepfather, and at the same time, I never would have fulfilled a stepfather role for somebody else's child. I just never would have been able to do that. I know, and I remember the story of your mom having kids in her 50s. But what I'm saying is that I believe what's more normal and healthy for society is women having the kids at a young age. So, like me being from Arkansas and growing up in a time warp, my parents and almost all of their peers, they all got married and had kids right around the age of 18, 19, 20, right? So I was born when my parents were 20 because I'm the firstborn, right? Both my sisters repeated that process. I did not. And what I told my family is I broke the cycle because the reality is, you know, regardless of whether my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses or not, me and my sisters were born into a cycle of abuse. And it was the same cycle of abuse that both of my parents were born into. And my sisters perpetuated that cycle of abuse to some extent. Both of my sisters are very overbearing, domineering parents. You know, they were very strict disciplinarians to their children, right? Which I know if I had fathered a child at the age of 20, number one, I'm a very responsible person. So I would have been in my kid's life. Meanwhile, I don't think I would have been able to handle. I think part of the reason why I never had a kid was, you know, neither one of my sisters, you know, they both became single moms to some extent. I don't think I would have psychologically been able to handle, you know, raising a kid without a father. So I would have been in the kid's life. And I don't think I would have been able to cope with some version of, I only get to see, now it's a woman. Now my mom's kid, because the slave system has determined that I don't have full custody. You know, now the other parent is controlling my access to being a father. I don't think I ever would have been able to deal with that. I really don't. You know, I don't even want to speculate on how I would have dealt with that situation. Right? I just don't think I would have been able to cope with it. So I think there's a reason why I was never placed in that position as a, you know, a very strong personality, right? I don't think the mother of my child would have ever been able to keep me from being the father to my child, regardless of what the earthly authorities said. You know? There you go. Having children is bringing back dead people into the game. I don't think you're lying, Aphrodite. I take people at their word, especially when they're revealing things about you know, their own lives. I'm not saying you're lying about it. You know, but I'm more interested in the ideas and you know, the actual sociology of it. You know, that's what I find interesting. I'm not concerned with whatever your past experiences. That's you, right? That's not. It's really neither here nor there for me. But I'm interested in, you know, what can I learn from observing, and then you have a certain intelligence where you can present the ideas in a certain type of way that I can actually, you know, glean things from. Yeah, I don't think you're a liar at all. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't. And by the way, none of that's ever come from me. Now, whether or not you use certain substances, I'm not speculating. I'm pointing out that there is a thing where some people use a substance and then claim not to use the substance and then really believe their own bullshit. Again, I don't know whether that's Aphrodite. I couldn't tell you. I might be willing to place a bet, but again, there's no way to really know. Oh, dude, America, dude, this is what I'm talking about with when people talk about taxes. Like, who would even want to pay taxes? Who would want to contribute to this? Whatever the government wants to break off of my 65 cents a mile, they're not going to use it to fix this road. They're going to use it to give it to bankers to pay the national debt. Yeah, dude, this America's infrastructure is in shambles, Raz, man. And half of these roads need to be replaced. Dude, the shape of the roads in America, it's fucking appalling, man. It really is. And the reality is these Volvos, this is a shorter wheelbase Volvo. It doesn't ride quite as good as the Kenworth rode really good and had the longer wheelbase and had a better suspension. But, yeah, this road is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Yeah. Now, these roads are bullshit in this country. Absolute bullshit. Well, I don't think I'm. Well, but it's not Aphrodite, and I'm trying to point out that I don't jump on bandwagons, but there can be some measure of truth to the bandwagon, right? But I'm pointing out that look. I go through this also, Aphrodite. There's whenever some sort of schism like this happens in a community, people are gonna try to use it to their own advantage, and if you're going to be this type of person to stand on your own strength and to put yourself out there, so courageously, this is going to continue to happen to you. So you might as well count on it and expect it. Meanwhile, you're like, welcome to people, Yeah, people really are like this, Aphrodite. What I would encourage you to do, again, I can't give advice, but what's worked for me is, I've got a self-selecting group of, look, you got 24 people in the house. I would say about 18 of which, now 2 of them left as soon as I say that. But, I say I got a hardcore group of 15 to 20, maybe 15 to 30 people, depending on what time of day are they actually available, So let's just say I've got 20 people who fuck with me, ride or die, they're come hell or high water, they ride with Benton, right? You can find and maybe you already have. There's like 20. There's a group of people who fuck with Aphrodite, right? What I would say is find those people. That's your group. Broadcast for them and for yourself. That's what I do. And then, I will interact with the so-called peanut gallery to some extent, and use the other the other factions and the other dynamics, observe them, accept them for what they are, use them to your own advantage, right? That's what I'm doing in my better moments. But I'm annoyed just like you are. Yeah, of course. I find that shit annoying also. But these people are never going to just out of nowhere grow a sense of accountability, right? Again, back to the Paul enslaved, they're not accountable. Aphrodite. Why are we expecting them to be accountable when they're not? And even Tommy, as much as I've criticized his own morality or lack thereof in certain ways, Tommy is able to hold himself accountable, but based on his own, code, which is, by the way, as a man, that's what he's supposed to do. And say what you want about Tommy. Tommy did pass into manhood, He's from West by God, Virginia, and he's a man of a certain age. He was not permitted, at a level of socialization, he wasn't allowed to remain a boy. Therefore, he is a man. So, surprise, surprise, Tommy is accountable. It's not an accident. Well, but I mean, that's the thing, Razvan, is, now we get into what does the world, what does the world, consider success versus if Aphrodite, what I would say to people is, if it's such good advice, that person should do it themselves, right? So ultimately, Aphrodite is the one who suffers for her own choices or accrues the benefits of her own choices. So ultimately, she's the only one who is equipped and qualified to make those determinations. What I'm saying is that I feel better, Aphrodite, when I have a job and when I'm earning money. I feel better about myself. That's me, right? But that's not because other people view me some type of way. It's because I feel better when I'm out here serving, this realm. As much as I do consider it a little literal hell realm, I am doing my part on some level. Like society is benefiting to some extent that I'm, conveying the worldly goods from point A to point B. Right? It's a benefit on some level. Now I don't view it that way at the level of like, oh, now I'm a good person, right? But what I'm saying, of course, after a long hiatus, I recognized, oh, I feel better about myself, and I did undergo some sort of low grade depression as a result of just not working a regular job for all those years. But that's me, right? That's me doing that, and I can only really speak for myself at that level. If Aphrodite wants to live the way she wants to live, hey, more power to her. And when I was choosing to live that way, you couldn't have told me nothing. More power to me, you know. And she's owning it. Uh, but still, we are observing you, Aphrodite, and we are seeing certain things in your presentment that some of us can then sort of make an educated guess about certain things that might be going on in your own psychology, which is fine, by the way. You um, I can't diagnose you over the internet, and meanwhile, I can't really diagnose anybody. But I am a lay expert in human psychology, so you know something's going on, Aphrodite. But meanwhile, yeah, you and a lot of other folks. So really, what's the relevance of that? Well, and I think Aphrodite. I can't speak for her, but it seems to me like she does subscribe to certain, esoteric type of knowledge, and maybe what we could even call like occult rituals. And I myself, I was heavily into that sort of material. In fact, I got very close to just really going full on into what, let's be honest, is Satanism. Although I didn't recognize it as that. And like I was listening to this Aaron character, Paul was replaying this Aaron character I'm still not familiar with, and he was given some sort of description of these dynamics about the Rothschilds and like claiming to have spoken with some of these people, and then but this Aaron character is trying to construe it as if the Rothschild type of folks actually care about humanity and all of this. But if you really read between the lines of what Aaron is saying, he's describing literal Satanism, right? And that's my thing about the, whatever my, experience of Christ is and all of this. Where I'm coming from is, my understanding is the only way I can keep from serving Satan and Satanism, if that's a thing, right, or overt evil, whatever the evil is, the only way for me to not serve that is to submit myself to the will and the law of the Most High. That's for me, though, not for you, for me to do that. whatever that means. Damn, I missed the rest area. Oh well. It's probably full anyway. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Always working on the logic. Thank you, Linda. Well, and Linda's a person I recognized very early on from her posts because I do come from the land of writing, and I come from the land of reading, and I come from the land of message board. I originally discussed ideas not in podcast form, not in live stream form. My discussions, and I have been on the internet far longer than most of you, although not all of you, but most of you. I go back to 1994 more or less on a daily basis. My interactions were discussion forums. So I recognize Linda Curtis as someone who had a certain apprehension of logic and reason and various ideas. So when I put forth a certain idea and then somebody like Linda Curtis gives a rebuttal, I read the comment, then I draw certain conclusions, and I actually integrate my own extrapolations over time. So thank you, Linda Curtis, because that's what I'm attempting to do over time is I'm constantly seeking to refine my own logic, right? And I will continue to do so until my heart stops beating. So yippee skippy yay for Benton. Who cares? But most other folks don't do that, and I accept that. Exactly. Yeah, I didn't have to go to prison to read over 1,000 books. That's right. Indeed. And at the end of the day, I'm not ever coming to any of these circles or communities without the actual discussion of ideas. Now, yeah, I will participate in the drama and I will facilitate the drama to some extent. And I myself respond to the drama, of course, because I am a human being. But, at the end of the day, it's the ideas and the discussion of the ideas that's bringing me to the party. I'm not here without that. But thank you, Linda Curtis. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, dude. This trucking is compared to whatever y'all got going on in Europe. Just this truck is a palace, and this thing's small. My Kenworth was even bigger, believe it or not. But oh yeah, man. For one, I couldn't imagine trying to have two people in this space. But yeah, for one person, this is amazing. But yeah, as far as the cab over engine, Benton, I don't sit. I'm not willing to be in front of. I'm not going to be in front of the front axle, right? Like that's the thing about driving a city bus. That's I'm not. I don't. Just the idea of being my physical body being in front of the front axle. That just to me that seems bizarre. Even above the front axle, I want to be behind the front axle for whatever reason. But yeah, I do love America. We do have a lot of space. Although some of these areas, some of these shippers and receivers are not designed for the length of the trailer. And now they're talking about we're at 53 feet. Now they're talking about going to 58 feet, which is just insane. Absolute insanity. Although they do allow 57 foot in some applications. I know because I was docked at a shipper one time, and another trucker crashed into the side of my trailer with his trailer. And then we got out to check out what was going on, and that was the first time I ever saw a 57 footer. So I think what happened is his patterns of, because he was a local driver in a day cab, and I think his patterns were so dug in over time to 53 foot. I think that he just he had a lapse in judgment and fell back to his old patterns. and that extra 4 feet is what. And he actually fucked my trailer up to an extent. But I said, man, my thing with truckers is if it's another trucker, you know, as long as I can not get in trouble for it, I'm just like, all right, man, you know, if anybody asks, I'll just tell them it must have happened while I must have been inside at the shipper, you know, because the reality is when I went back to the terminal, they might have noticed, but I don't think anybody noticed. Now, if he fucked my tractor up, that would have been a different matter entirely. Yeah, we have triples in the U.S. also, Brass Van. It's only in certain areas. Now, here's something else we have in America you may not know about. Like in certain places in America, we've got 53-foot doubles, which just sounds insane. I know, like New York State has it on the turnpike to some extent. Oh wait, I cannot exit here. But yeah, 53-foot doubles. But yeah, some places do have triples. I know, like in Kansas, I think they have triples on the turnpike. I do believe. Let's see if I can catch this. Yeah. Well, because the infrastructure's crumbled, the shoulder here is in terrible condition, of course. Break time. Might be wrap the stream up time, but I'll let you folks. The chat is on fire this morning, so we'll let the chat sort of carry it, if y'all don't mind. Yeah, some of the trucks have it. This one doesn't have the. My last truck had the string you pull for the air horn. This one, it's in the Volvos, it's actually integrated into the steering wheel. Yeah. Oh yeah. Gotta love the air horn. But I guess if y'all want a panel, let me know. I know Murphy wanted to come up, but we're gonna need at least one other person because I can't carry a multi-way convo right now. Excuse me. All right. So bear with me. I might yell at you. I might yell at you from the sleeper though, if that's all right. Y'all don't mind. Oh my God. I think I'll just kill the camera and take you in the back with me. My company gave me a hoodie, so I'm wearing a hoodie with the company name. So I got to kill the camera. I'll accidentally talk to myself. There's your air horn, by the way. I leaned on it. Brace yourself, fool. Yeah, I'm not willing to. Yeah, I'm not doing doubles. My thing is, if I get involved in some distracted driving, you know, it's really not a problem with just the one trailer. But if I know, that's one of the things I noticed when I first started truck driving, that if I see a rig rolled over, it's disproportionately going to be somebody pulling two trailers. It's just, the whole rig is easier to roll over. You know, I certainly wouldn't be trying to do live streams and pull doubles. Although my schedule, it would be way easier to do, because like most of the line haul stuff where you just run like terminal to terminal.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no thanks. And I don't have any of the endorsements. That's an extra endorsement in America. You have to take a test or whatever to get the doubles / triples endorsement. I don't want to deal with that, or hazmat, none of that bullshit. But anyway, I guess I'll drop the link, but just for anybody who realizes it, I'm not bringing anybody up until there's multiple people, because I don't have the energy to carry the whole thing with just one other person. So just don't be offended if just one person tries to pop on and I don't bring you on. Although I might, who knows? Who knows? Oh yeah. It's grapefruit time. Grapefruits and oranges. I think so. I think we do, Razvan. If I'm thinking about, if I understand your meaning, I believe we do. Yeah. I think so. Not entirely sure, but I think so. Unless you mean like a double decker bus, we don't have. I don't believe we have those. Oh no, we don't have none of those. No, sir. All right. Oh yeah. So I picked up all my supplements yesterday. I guess I should have done an unboxing, but I'm on this papaya, papaya extract or whatever, and I think it's going to be good for my digestion in the long run. But in the short term, it's some things happening down there, maybe less than ideal. But I don't want to be specific. Anyway, bear with me. I'm eating. Oh, I see. Well, what's your trailer length? I see. I'm pulling a 53-foot trailer, so I know we can get more. We can get more than 33 pallets. I'm pretty sure. I like cherries. I just do the extracts for my gout, though. But yeah, I like to eat. Cherries are good. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to eat into the microphone, so short break. All right, I'm probably out of shit to say anyway, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. 2 hours and 13 minutes. That's good enough. Thanks for watching. Bye.